Right, so in 1923, a man literally tied himself to a log, threw himself into a raging real-life rapid, nearly drowned, and in the process, he accidentally invents the visual language of modern cinema.
Oh, absolute rubbish, mate. Complete and utter rubbish.
Wait, let me finish. He was just trying to get a laugh, and he created one of the greatest masterpieces of 1920s cinema, a monumental achievement that
You are staring at a dusty, flickering antique. You're romanticizing a bloke with a death wish and a camera, and you are trying to convince yourself and everyone listening that it's the second coming of art.
Hold on a second. Just hold on. You are completely dismissing a foundational text of cinematic history.
It's a bit overhyped, to say the very least. It's rather dull, if we're being completely honest.
It's not dull. Right, let's get you, listening to this, properly situated, because we are getting into a proper debate today. We are looking at the 1923 Buster Keaton film, Our Hospitality.
Cinema, the magic vehicle, a comprehensive guide. Journey 1, 1913 to 1950.
And our goal today, the whole mission for you listening, is to figure out if this film actually shaped modern visual storytelling, or if it's just some dusty relic that film snobs pretend to like.
I'll save you the suspense, it's the latter.
You have to decide whose side you are on today. Are you with me, the enthusiast who can actually see joy in structural innovation? Or are you with the cynic over here who apparently just hates fun?
Oh, I don't hate fun. I hate pretentious nonsense masquerading as genius, and frankly, this entire premise is dodgy.
It is not dodgy. The book is brilliant. It covers up to 1980. Wait, no, let me get this right. The book itself goes to 81, but Journey 1 only covers up to 1950. Anyway, moving on. The point is...
You're already making a shambles of the timeline, but go on, please. Defend the supposedly magical vehicle. I am all ears.
I will. Because cinema, the magic vehicle, claims, quite rightly, to be the ultimate guide to classical films. It is specifically designed to help viewers, to help you, the listener, avoid all these soulless modern remakes.
Oh, right, because everything new is bad and everything old is sacred. Classic, film buff, snobbery.
It's about discovering actual masterpieces from the silent era to the golden age. The author describes it as a time travel experience that reflects the political, social, and cultural spirit of the period.
Grown. A time-traveled experience. You can't be serious.
I think that is spot on. It's properly genius because it takes a magnifying glass to the cinema of 1913 to 1950. And we need that magnifying glass.
We really don't. It's a glorified list of old films that film buffs pretend to like at dinner parties so they can sound smart.
But these silent films, they were working without words, right? And yet they managed to evoke incredibly strong emotions. It's like a Rosetta Stone for modern cinema.
A Rosetta Stone? Are you joking? Hear me out. That is a remarkably dodgy comparison.
If you don't understand the mechanisms of these pictures, you fundamentally do not understand what you are watching today.
That blurb you just read, it is bloody pretentious. Time travel experience. It is just old celluloid, mate. There is no magic vehicle here. It's an antiquated catalog.
Wait. How can you say they don't evoke strong emotions? Without words, they had to invent a whole new visual language.
They didn't invent a visual language because they were geniuses with some grand aesthetic philosophy.
They couldn't rely on dialogue to explain the plot. They had to build the narrative into the very geometry of the frame.
They did it because the technology was too primitive to record a bloke speaking. You are retroactively applying high art genius to a technical limitation.
But that limitation bred absolute brilliance. And if you want to understand how that brilliance mechanically worked, we have to look at Buster Keaton himself.
Yes, let's look at the acrobat.
He is more than an acrobat. We all know the basic trivia, right? Born in 1885, child performer in his family's vaudeville act, The Three Keatons.
Right, thrown around the stage for cheap laughs.
Exactly. We all know he was literally thrown across the stage by his dad as a toddler. But what people miss is how that shaped his understanding of cinematic physics.
Cinematic physics. Listen to yourself.
Because he was a human projectile from age 3, he instinctively understood trajectory, momentum, and exactly where a body needs to land in a camera frame.
Oh, please.
That's why his comedy is so structural. He thought in vectors, not words.
He wasn't thinking in vectors, mate. He was thinking about not breaking his neck. That is survival instinct, not auteur theory.
It translates to the screen perfectly.
He was brought into the film industry in 1917 by Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, a massive star. Keaton was just doing these small supporting parts, getting knocked over in the background of shorts.
Like Out West in 1918. He was brilliant in that.
He was just riding Arbuckle's coattails, mate. He was a prop. A human prop.
But then he fought on the Somme in World War I. Do you have any idea what that does to a person's psyche and, more importantly, their art?
Oh, here we go with the armchair psychology.
He goes to war, he survives the industrialized, mechanized slaughter of the Somme, and when he comes back, his entire style is fundamentally different. The book points this out beautifully.
Book is reaching. It is reaching so far it's going to pull a muscle.
Early cinema was dominated by what it calls frantic fooleries, just people running around like lunatics, wildly flailing their arms, indulging in Victorian melodrama.
Yes, that was the style of the time.
But Keaton comes back, and his style is incredibly modern. It's rooted in a very down-to-earth attitude to life.
You are stretching this psychological analysis incredibly thin.
No, listen to me. This is crucial. The trauma, the reality of the Somme, it gave him this modern edge. It killed Victorian melodrama for him.
You're saying World War I invented deadpan comedy? That is mental.
Surviving a mechanized war made him realize that the universe doesn't care about your feelings. So crying and flailing is absurd. That's where the genius of his trademark comes from.
A trademark he stumbled into.
In 1920, in a picture called The Saphead, he introduces the immobile face, the great stone face. He never smiled.
Because he couldn't act.
Amidst all the chaos, all the frantic mugging to the camera that other actors were doing, Keaton just stopped. He did nothing. It was a philosophical stance against an indifferent universe applied to comedy.
A philosophical stance. It was a parlor trick. The book mentions the Somme, yes, but to claim it magically bestowed upon him a modern edge and this profound stoicism is a massive leap.
It's right there in his performance.
What really happened? Let's look at the cold, hard facts from the source. Joseph M. Schenck gave him a studio.
Well, yes, Schenck was a producer.
Schenck just handed him a studio mate. Pure nepotism and sheer dumb luck. Arbuckle introduces him, Schenck funds him. Where is the struggling philosophical genius in that?
The genius is what he did with the blank canvas Schenck gave him. He completely revolutionized the form.
What he did was realize that if he stared blankly while a building fell on him, people would laugh. That's a stunt, not an emotional performance.
That is entirely reductive.
I ask you, and I ask you listening right now, think about the actors you love today, the ones who really move you to tears. If they never smiled, if they literally only had one single blank expression plastered on their face for their entire career, would you call them a genius, or would you just call them wooden?
I'd call them brilliantly stoic. It's an exploration of human endurance, and Keaton himself knew exactly what he was doing.
He knew how to fall over.
He actively claimed he had absolutely nothing in common with Charlie Chaplin. The book outlines this perfectly, and it's a vital distinction for the listener.
Vital. It's just petty rivalry.
Keaton described Chaplin's character, the tramp, as a good-for-nothing layabout.
Are you joking? That is mental. You are genuinely going to sit there and bash Chaplin to elevate a stuntman.
Wait, hold on a second. I'm not bashing Chaplin. Keaton bashed Chaplin. I'm just telling you what the man said.
Well, he was wrong.
He saw Chaplin's tramp as someone who begs for sympathy. But Keaton's character, he's an honest wage earner.
An honest wage earner.
He is clumsy. Yes, he is perpetually taken by surprise by the chaotic mechanics of the modern world. But he always rises to the challenge. He never gives up.
He just stands there looking confused.
He remains unperturbed. And he invariably wins through. Keaton's character is spot on for you, the listener, today.
Oh, please don't drag the listener into this delusion.
We all feel battered by a world of broken technology and impossible rules, right? And Keaton represents that everyday perseverance. He's the ultimate working class hero.
Chaplin actually made audiences feel something. You want to talk about the working class? Chaplin had pathos.
Pathos is just a fancy word for manipulating the audience.
Chaplin's Tramp was a profound sociological commentary on poverty, the Gilded Age, and the human condition. Chaplin could break your heart with a twitch of his mustache and a close-up on his eyes.
Yes, but Keaton
was just a bloke who was very good at not dying when he fell off a roof. You talk about this honest wage earner nonsense.
It's not nonsense, it's his central archetype.
It's a convenient excuse for a character who lacks the emotional depth to feel sorrow or joy. Chaplin understood the human condition. Keaton just understood gravity.
But gravity is universal. The geometry of Keaton's frame is just as emotionally resonant as Chaplin's sociology.
Geometry does not make you cry, mate.
And you are completely ignoring the sheer volume of brilliant work he produced once he got that studio. He didn't just fall off roofs, he was a relentless architect of comedy.
Architect, he was a contractor at best.
Look at the run he had co-directing with Edward F. Klein, The Scarecrow in 1920. Neighbors in 1920.
Yes, short films. 20 minutes of running around.
The High Sign in 1921. The Goat in 1921. Cops in 1922. These shorts are masterclasses in escalating tension.
Directing two-reelers filled with sight gags is one thing. You set up a ladder, you fall off the ladder. Brilliant. Crap, clap.
It is much more complex than a ladder.
But building a sustained narrative is another beast entirely. Which brings us to his supposed leap to features. The Three Ages in 1923.
Yes, The Three Ages, a fascinating piece of work.
Fascinating. It was complete shambles.
That was an ambitious experiment.
The book calls it a parody of D.W. Griffith's Intolerance and an optimistic variant of Fritz Lang's Destiny. But let's be honest about what it actually was structurally.
It was a structural marvel.
He couldn't write a proper feature film if his life depended on it, so he literally just stitched 3 one-reelers together, 3 separate shorts, set in different historical periods, masquerading as a feature.
It was an episodic structure. It was an innovative way to play with historical themes.
It was an uneven assembly. The source material explicitly says it amounts to little more than an uneven assembly.
But the individual sequences are brilliant.
You have a bloke on a prehistoric catapult in one scene, and then a lioness getting a manicure in ancient Rome in another. It's completely disjointed. It's a patchwork quilt of leftover gags.
But it was a necessary stepping stone. You have to view The Three Ages as the transitional phase.
I view it as a failure to grasp narrative cinema.
It's like a comedian desperately trying to turn a tight 5-minute stand-up routine into a one-man Broadway play. He didn't know how to sustain an hour of narrative yet.
Exactly. He didn't know how to do his job.
So he just stacked 3 short films on top of each other, wearing a trench coat. He had to test if audiences would tolerate his stoicism for more than 20 minutes.
Tolerating is the right word.
He was experimenting with the rhythm of a longer runtime, and thank goodness he did, because later that exact same year, 1923, he cracks the code. We get the masterpiece, Our Hospitality.
Ah, yes. The supposedly impeccably logical masterpiece.
It is impeccably logical. Let's lay out the mechanics of this plot for the listener, because you need to understand the scale and the structural brilliance of this thing.
Make it quick, it's a rather thin plot.
Our Hospitality, produced by Schenck, co-directed by Keaton and John G. Blystone. It's 1,895 meters of celluloid.
Measuring greatness in meters now, are we?
Starring Keaton, his actual wife at the time, Natalie Talmadge, playing Virginia Canfield, and Joe Roberts. The plot is just brilliant in its simplicity and its constraints.
Simple is one word for it.
It's 1831. Willie McKay, played by Keaton, is a New York dandy who travels down to Rockville, Kentucky to claim his family inheritance.
A dandy. Right, so much for your honest working class wage earner theory you were spouting 5 minutes ago.
Well, his characters vary.
Yeah.
The book says his character here is not always entirely respectable, but he remains unperturbed.
He's a blank slate.
Anyway, Willie takes a train down south. He meets this girl on the journey, Virginia. She invites him to dinner. Turns out her father is the head of the Canfield family.
And here comes the dodgy trope.
And the Canfields have been in a literal blood feud with the McKays for generations. They want to murder him. But, and here is the genius structural constraint, because of strict Southern chivalry, they cannot kill a guest inside their own house.
It's absurd.
If he steps outside, he's dead meat. So Willie has to hilariously figure out how to extend his stay. It's a locked room comedy. He uses every ploy imaginable.
It's a single joke stretched over half an hour.
Like it starts raining, so he uses the downpour as an excuse to spend the night. Every joke comes from this impeccably logical survival mechanism.
You call a bloke staying inside because it's raining impeccably logical? Are you having a laugh? It is a dodgy premise stretched far too thin.
It's a natural extension of the rules the film set up. Every single episode, every scene, serves as a natural source of unexpected comedy.
Unexpected. You know exactly what's going to happen.
And the way he shot it, the book details how Keaton's films were always semi-improvised. He wouldn't have a rigid 120-page script.
Because he couldn't write one.
He would just explain the basic situation. I'm trapped in the parlor, the men with guns are in the hall, and then he'd explain the main gag to the crew on location.
Yeah.
And they would find the magic spontaneously.
That's not magic, mate.
That spontaneity is what makes it so kinetic. He's calculating vectors in real time.
That's not spontaneity calculating vectors, mate. That's a lack of preparation. Let's just show up and see what happens is a terrible way to construct a narrative.
It worked perfect.
And this reliance on the Southern chivalry trope, it's just a flimsy, convenient excuse to keep all the characters in one room so Keaton can do cheap physical tricks. The pacing drags terribly.
It doesn't drag, it builds.
He's just stalling for time before the inevitable chase sequence.
Stalling for time, he is building agonizing tension. The rigidity of this blood feud where Willie is trapped by these absurd mechanical rules of Southern chivalry is perfectly mirrored by the train that brings him there.
Oh, here we go with the trains.
Which brings us to the Iron Monster. This is where the film just transcends for me. Keaton had this massive passion for trains.
Yes, a grown man playing with trains. Very autistic.
The story takes place just a few years after steam engines were imported from Great Britain. So what does Keaton do? He doesn't just use a wooden prop.
He wastes the budget is what he does.
He creates a fully working model of Stephenson's rocket, the first commercially successful steam railway locomotive. It's a proper mechanical marvel.
Sigh. So he's a mechanic, not a filmmaker. You're gobsmacked by a toy train, mate.
It is not a toy. It's an incredibly detailed reconstruction of historical engineering. And the journey on this train is side-splitting because of how Keaton shoots it.
Side-splitting is a very strong phrase for a mild chuckle.
The title card says, "Onward sped the Iron Monster." And it's this incredibly flimsy, slow, chaotic machine. There's a scene where this monster of modern technology is completely brought to a halt by a stubborn donkey standing on a level crossing.
Yes, the donkey scene. Cinematic history right there.
And think about the geometry of that shot.
It's a bloke looking at a donkey. Let's not call it geometry.
No, it is geometry. A lesser director, or someone obsessed with pathos like Chaplin, would shoot a close-up of the actor looking frustrated, then cut to a close-up of the donkey.
Because that conveys emotion.
But Keaton shoots it in a wide, static shot. He forces the audience to see the punchline developing before the character does.
That's just stage blocking on camera.
You see, the relentless forward momentum of the train perfectly contrasted against the absolute stasis of the donkey in one single frame. It's an exploration of human ingenuity against the chaos of the natural world.
You are projecting so much meaning onto a farm animal. It's a moderately amusing sight gag, and he milks it for all it's worth because he doesn't know how to write dialogue.
He didn't have sound. How could he write dialogue?
Title cards. Chaplin used title cards brilliantly to convey wit.
And he exploits the possibilities of the railway brilliantly, a technique he'd later perfect in The General. But here, the train journey sets up the isolation of the rural South.
It's filler.
It locks Willie onto a track, literally and metaphorically. And then we get to the breakneck climax. He finally escapes the house in disguise.
And we abandon the only interesting premise the film had.
And we get this sequence where he is miraculously dodging bullets, navigating these perilous real-life waterfalls, trying to save Virginia, who has come to his rescue.
Yes, the famous waterfall climax. More stunts. More physical spectacle to desperately hide the complete lack of emotional depth in the narrative.
Lack of emotional depth. He is risking his actual life to rescue the woman he loves. The physical reality of the stunt is the emotional depth.
Getting wet is not a character arc.
And then, in a stroke of genius, he swings to safety, takes advantage of the sudden appearance of a pastor, and hurriedly marries Virginia. Right there, soaking wet.
Just in time to forestall a new assault from the Canfields. It is completely contrived.
Because once he's married into the family, Joseph Canfield has to reluctantly bless the union and call off the feud. Willie is safe. The mechanical logic of the feud is used to resolve the plot. It wraps up perfectly.
It wraps up conveniently. The pastor just happens to be there. It's absurd.
It's comedy. It's meant to be absurd. And it's driven by a consistent, rigorous, dramatic line.
Rigorous is the last word I'd use.
In fact, let's talk about the visual language, because this is where the book makes a point that absolutely blew my mind.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
And it proves Keaton's genius as a pure filmmaker. The superiority of our hospitality rests on its excellent editing and its staging.
The staging is adequate.
The prologue of the film, which explains the origins of this family feud before Willie even goes south, it contains the embryo of the depth staging technique.
Oh, here we go. I knew you were going to bring up this completely mental theory.
It's not a theory. It's right here in the text. Depth staging. Let me explain this for you listening, because it's vital.
It's vital if you want to sound incredibly pretentious at a pub.
Depth staging is showing several simultaneous actions within the exact same frame, but at different distances from the camera. The foreground, the midground, the background.
Yes, it's called three-dimensional space. We live in it.
All holding vital narrative information at the same time. The viewer's eye isn't spoon-fed by a tight close-up. You have to actively scan the frame.
You're acting like he invented perspective.
The book explicitly states that this technique was brilliantly used years later by Orson Welles in Citizen Kane.
You cannot be serious. Comparing a slapstick 1923 prologue to Citizen Kane, that is mental.
No.
It is absolutely bloody mental.
I am serious, and the author of the book is serious. Look at the prologue.
It's an insult to Wells.
You have characters plotting in the foreground, while through a window or doorway in the deep background, you see the threat approaching. It creates this incredible three-dimensional tension.
The author is as deluded as you are. Orson Welles was a visionary who constructed his shots with mathematical precision to convey the crushing psychological weight of Charles Foster Kane's ego.
And Keaton was calculating vectors.
Buster Keaton was shooting outdoors in Kentucky, dragging a camera through the mud, and probably just had two actors stand far apart by accident because they were shooting on a real location.
Accident? That's ridiculous.
It was a logistical necessity of shooting outdoors, not a groundbreaking aesthetic philosophy.
That's such a cynical, ridiculous take. It was entirely intentional framing. You don't accidentally invent depth staging.
You do if you can't afford a proper studio set.
He had an incredible team helping him calculate these shots. Cinematographers Elgin Leslie and Gordon Jennings,
Technicians.
art director Fred Gobbery. Even the costumes by Walter Israel added to the depth and texture of the frame.
Yeah.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
You knew how to expose film properly. That doesn't make them Wells.
It maintains a consistent dramatic line, mate. Keaton invented modern visual language while Chaplin was still crying over his cane.
You are attributing the evolution of global cinematic language to a man who couldn't figure out how to get a donkey off some train tracks.
He knew exactly how to use the donkey.
He didn't write the script alone, you know? Clyde Bruckman, Gene Chavez, Joseph Mitchell, they wrote it. Keaton was surrounded by people propping him up, trying to make his blank, traumatized stare seem profound.
They were executing his vision.
It is a sequence of moderately amusing physical gags strung together by a flimsy romantic subplot and a bizarre train fetish. To call it a masterpiece that rivals Wells is a complete insult to actual cinema.
It is not an insult. It is a revelation. It proves that comedy is just as technically demanding, just as structurally complex as any heavy drama.
It proves no such thing.
The book calls Keaton's acting and style of humor universal and describes his work as evergreen. And that is the absolute truth.
It's dated. It's incredibly dated.
You can watch Our Hospitality today, over 100 years later, and the physics of the joke still work flawlessly.
It works if you have the patience of a saint and the critical faculties of a toddler.
Are you joking?
For the rest of us, who value character, pathos, and actual human emotion over how fast a bloke can fall down a hill, it is a rather dull, overhyped museum piece.
We are just going to have to violently disagree on this.
We certainly are.
So it is over to you listening to us right now. Are you with me on the absolute genius of the Iron Monster, the brilliantly intentional depth staging, and the universal appeal of Buster Keaton?
Or are you sensible?
Or are you buying into this cynical nonsense from someone who refuses to see the magic in the magic vehicle?
Before you decide whose side you're on, consider this final thought.
Oh, you do.
If Keaton's entire legacy, his supposed modern edge, is built on the fact that his physical stunts were real, that he actually risked his neck on those waterfalls, what happens to cinema as a magic vehicle today?
It evolves.
When every stunt you see is just CGI painted on a green screen and no one is actually in danger, does perfection kill the comedy? If you take away the real-world physics, does the great stone face just crumble?
Cheers.
Cheers.